The time of year was springtime, and the primroses were blooming, and though we didn't know it yet, calamity was looming. This whole adventure started with my church's invitation for me and all my family to join the congregation for fellowship and supper hosted at a deacon's villa, but something quite unusual disturbed our koinonia. Upon the nearby staircase came a sudden strange commotion that broke into our chattering and set our feet in motion. We raced upstairs and saw a scene of ruin and disaster, and in the very middle sat the child of the pastor. The toddler clutched a scarlet bottle of nail polish. Hark, it was drizzled generously on the lovely ivory carpet. Abruptly, I was seized by unexpected inspiration and wrote a poem to describe the humorous occasion. The poem was a great success. Perhaps to this I owe it that ever since that incident, I've always been a poet. Today, I hope to share my love and deep appreciation for poetry, the topic that I chose for my oration. Let's take a look together at a poem's basic features, and secondly, investigate the things the art can teach us. With creativity in rhyme and marching beat in meter and wondrous worlds of imagery that captivate the reader, great poems echo in the minds of those who love and know them. This is my speech on poetry that's written as a poem. Unless I mention otherwise, the facts I will be citing are taken from the educator Dana Kaywood's writing. To start our journey, let's obtain a basic comprehension of features that a poem has. The first I'd like to mention is fairly obvious. It's rhyme. But what's the definition of this important quality? It is the repetition of groups of syllables that have the same pronunciation, with sounds that differ at the start, the only aberration. True rhymes are words like bold and cold. Except for their first letter, their sounds are much the same. True rhymes are generally better than near rhymes, pairs like deep and peak. Though they might sound official, they aren't true rhymes, with their resemblance only superficial. Though I prefer avoiding these, and others may abhor them, I have a few within the speech, but you can just ignore them. Great rhymes contribute beauty to a poem. For example, let's look at Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Here's a sample. Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. Another poem feature, and the next I'll be addressing, is known as meter. Meter is a poem's way of stressing some syllables and leaving others not accentuated. A poem's rhythm is a way that this can be restated. Let's listen for the rhythm in the following quotation of verses by Sam Walter Foss for your consideration. I know there are brook-gladdened meadows ahead and mountains of wearisome height, that the road passes on through the late afternoon and stretches away to the night. Yet still I rejoice when the travelers rejoice and weep with the strangers that moan, nor live in my house by the side of the road like a man who dwells alone. Although I favor rhyme and meter, as is evidential, in actuality, these attributes are not essential. The property we'll look at next in our examination is imagery, which Kaywood claims is poetry's foundation. Poetic imagery provides a visualization within the minds of readers by creating a relation between two different things compared creatively together. As in Emily Dickinson's Hope is the Thing with Feathers. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul, that sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash that little bird that kept so many warm. We see that in this poem, Dickinson made a selection of certain things, a bird, and hope, and gives us a connection between the two by helping us to use imagination to picture in our minds the subject of consideration. A poem that has meter, rhyme, and imagery uniting is one of the most beautiful and pleasing forms of writing. Though there are several other parts to poetry's construction, the three we have discussed provide a decent introduction. We've learned some basic elements of poetry. However, there's something else we should inspect as part of our endeavor. Our journey would be incomplete if we refrain from gleaning the deeper truths in poetry, its message and its meaning. Some poems are devised to generate a strong reaction in cases where the poet wants to call us all to action. Another purpose is to serve as a commemoration of something that might otherwise escape our contemplation. Some crystallize an instant and so help our minds to foment an image that can make us feel as if we lived the moment. Still others offer insight that we may have never gotten, or bring to light and honor those that might have been forgotten. I'd like to quote a poem of remembrance. In addition, it illustrates how verse can call the reader to a mission. These lines were penned in World War I, as men were killed like cattle. In fact, as Roy Cook notes, the author later died in battle. This poem is so powerful that even now we know it. This work is called In Flanders Fields, with John McCrae, the poet. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amidst the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. Another thing a poem can accomplish is revealing the poet's inner musings, or what he or she is feeling. With poems, we can scale the peaks of joy and exultation, or dive beneath the ocean waves of pain and desperation. By reading poems that convey a sorrowful aesthetic, we can take heed of others' grief and grow more empathetic. Of course, a major part of what makes poetry a treasure is simply that it's beautiful and gives the reader pleasure. Although the purposes I've mentioned have a certain merit, they aren't a poem's greatest worth. But now I'd like to share it. In every poem that you read, you see a small reflection of God's vast creativity and limitless perfection. Like all the beauty in this world, a poem should inspire the people that partake of it to lift their gazes higher. The deepest goal of poetry, like that of all creation, is praising God who made the earth and offers us salvation. In poems, we should give our praises and our adoration to God, the greatest author and the King of exaltation. Today we looked at poems, and I hope that you discovered some things you didn't know before. Let's survey what we've covered. We briefly contemplated 3 of poetry's dimensions with meter, rhyme, and imagery, all earning brief attention. The messages in poetry were next in our endeavor, of which the greatest is to praise the King who reigns forever. Perhaps you're thinking to yourself, all right, that's nice, but Owen, what is the reason I should care at all about a poem? At times, our lives seem nothing more than drudgery and duty, but poetry can help us fill our minds and hearts with beauty. The splendor found in poetry can keep us from forgetting the greater splendor that is yet to come. So, it is fitting that we should end with poetry acclaiming glories brighter. There is no name so sweet on earth, penned by an unknown writer, reminds us that while poems should inspire, move, and please us, that There's no word, ear ever heard, so dear, so sweet as Jesus.